Okay, you do Ali Smith, Richard Flanagan and Karen Joy Fowler.
Alright, you've got Harry Jacobson.
Joshua Ferris. And Neil Mukherjee.
Okay, alright. Hey guys, this is Jonathan. It's my pal Jonathan. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rupin. I currently work at Foyle's Bookshop. In fact, I celebrate 20 years in the book trade this month.
Do you?
Yeah.
Happy book birthday.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was only a Christmas temp job and still
That's what happens though. You think, oh, it's just for a while.
Yeah, well, that's all you can do with an English degree.
Exactly. So we thought we would have a chat about literary prizes in general, because you are on the judging panel of one right now.
I am doing the Guardian First Book Award. We're currently cogitating and contemplating about our shortlist from our long list of 10. Yeah, and I'm really happy with the long list, so getting it down to 5 is proving tricky.
And the Guardian First Book Award is really interesting because it's not just novels, is it? Non-fiction as well, and everything.
Yes, anything that's first book, which one or two publishers didn't quite understand, judging by some of the entries that we got, which weren't first books.
But had they paid the entry fee to do so?
Yes.
Well, that's alright then. Take their money.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what other judging panels have you been on?
Well, the Costa Novel Award was the first one I did. That was a lot of fun. A hell of a lot of reading. That's probably the most reading I've done in a very short period of time.
Come on, specifics. How many?
Well, that was 67 books in. How long was it? It was about 10 weeks or something like that. Yeah, and it was fun, and it was weird. The funny thing was, for about 2 weeks after I'd finished doing the prize, I kept on reading at about 2 books every 3 days until suddenly I stopped and realised I needed to have a break. Otherwise, I would never be able to read normally again.
Is it after? It's kind of like after exam periods, and you wake up thinking right, and then you just start revising again until you realise, no, I did that. That's already done and it's finished.
I don't know, it was just, it's actually a lot of fun reading in that intensity. I mean, yes, there's occasionally evening when you come home and think, I actually don't want to read another book. But as a bookseller who is surrounded by books that you want to read all the time, it's a lot of fun just to have that excuse to say, sorry, I'm not going out, I'm not talking to anybody else, I'm just going to go home and I'm going to read a novel and a half before I go to bed.
And bloody hell, I'm being paid to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there was a literary prize that you could be on the judging panel for, which one would you pick?
Well, it would be the
Man Booker.
The
Come on, guys, pick Jonathan. He's good.
But it is the book prize.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the lovely things about doing a book prize is, as a bookseller, you get to hand sell. As a judge on a prize, you basically get to say to an entire country, we've read all these books, and if we had to pick one, it would be this one.
Yeah.
So basically, you're ensuring tens of thousands of extra sales of a book that you absolutely love. So why would anybody not want to do the Booker, which makes more impact than any other prize there is?
So what prizes do you like to follow? So there's Man Booker, Bailey's, Forward Prize?
I'm not huge on poetry. I mean, I'm always interested to know who's won, but I wouldn't necessarily always read the winner. I mean, you know, I'd say that with some of the genre prizes. I'm not necessarily a huge reader of crime, but I'm always interested in the CWA awards. I'm not necessarily a big sci-fi reader. I read bits and pieces, but I'm always fascinated to know what's won the Hugos and the Arthur C. Clarke Award.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to be aware of as many as possible, but I mean, there are 300 awards plus in the UK alone. Most of which unfortunately don't make a splash, but all of them have that little bit of potential. Yeah,
absolutely. So at Foyle, sometimes the shortlisted authors for the Man Booker Prize come in and do a big afternoon signing. You were in charge of that last year. So last year you had an event with Ali Smith, Karen Joy Fowler, Richard Flanagan,
Harry Jacobson, Neil Mukherjee, and Joshua Ferris.
Yes, nailed it.
So basically, we set 6 tables up and set them all up with a pile of books. And I got to shuttle between them all, just checking they were all okay and making sure everything was fine and chatting with all of them. And it's about as much fun as I've ever had at work.
And it was the night of Books in My Bag launch as well, wasn't it? It was a bit crazy.
It was. Well, what was rather fun is that I got each of them to sign one of the Books in My Bag bags to try and give away as a prize. And then one of the authors, I think it was Neil Mukherjee, said, "Could you get one of those signed by all the other authors?" Which was fun. And then all the other authors asked me to do the same. So I then had to produce 6 bags, each of which was missing one of their signatures, and then give it to the right author. And I think I got it right, but one of them may have gone away with a bag with their own signature on it.
That's all right. I'm sure that's fine. If you guys don't know what Books in My Bag is, I recently did a video about them, which I will link down below. And who was your favourite to win last year, before the winners announced?
It was Richard Flanagan,
Oh,
but
was it?
by a whisker over
Yeah.
Ali Smith. I thought that Richard Flanagan was superb. I thought it was a masterpiece. I thought that was one of the great Booker winners.
So I wanted to talk to you about what happens when you're judging a prize, and if you've ever got into any fights with judges. Obviously not fist fights, but you know, like really, really strong disagreements, or have you always managed to be able to persuade people, or they've persuaded you?
I've always been very lucky in terms of the judges that I've been with. I've not really encountered much in the way of disagreeable personalities. Most people seem to come into it with a very open mind. There was one judge who came into one prize with some very fixed ideas about what constituted a good novel. By coincidence, we agreed, but we came to the answer by very different routes.
That's interesting. When you're looking at a book, not you in particular, but I guess what you've come across is whether people just look at the book or have come, maybe not even consciously, with ideas of the author and how they felt about their previous work, and whether or not it's just based on that book anymore. Because we have been talking about this, and we feel it should be based on the book for that prize, for any prize, because that's what it's about.
And I think most judges would agree with that. I think it can be very difficult for the weight of an author's back catalogue not to impinge upon what you do. But I think it can work both ways. You can suddenly be aware that you might have a bias towards a favourite author, and you can start thinking, and you can start questioning every positive thing that you come up with about the book, to make sure that you are judging something on the grounds of the book itself.
Yeah.
Certainly there's never really been, when I've been a judge, there's never really been any discussion of the author and their previous writing, just as there's never any discussion about the overall makeup of the shortlist or the long list, in terms of how many women it might have on it, how many non-white writers it might have on it, how many independent publishers it has on it. It was interesting with the Guardian prize this year that our long list is very indie dominated, which one or two people thought was a very deliberate Guardian thing to do. But we didn't notice until we picked our list that it was dominated by indies. It never came up in the discussion.
It is quite a diverse shortlist, though. I was also saying to Jonathan that most of the shortlist is about men, even the books that are written by women. And if it is just on the merit of the books, then that's fine. But it is a problem, I think, with prizes, or with the book world in general. Do you think that's still a problem?
Yes, I think it is. And I think it's also one of the issues, because it's a slightly subtler point to notice. To be honest, I think we've only just started discussing it. And so it is an issue that you need to address, otherwise things don't change.
No, I agree. And I think a lot of people maybe will respond to that in the sense of, well, that's ridiculous, and the best book should be there, whether it's recommendations or a prize. And whilst I absolutely agree, I think there are those prejudices that I think a lot of readers maybe aren't even aware of. So it's just being a case of being aware of your choices, and if you're making conscious decisions and those are still the decisions that you make, that's absolutely fine. I
used to think I was a very open-minded reader, and I went for an editorial job about 15 years ago. One of the things that I did before I went on this to the interview was I looked at the last 50 books that I'd read to see if there was any pattern that I could discern. And I was horrified to find that the vast majority of them were by men, and it wasn't a conscious thing.
And white men as well?
Yes, and by white men. And at that point I made a decision that for the next year I was going to consciously make sure that I chose more women and more non-white writers. Since then, I've occasionally gone back and checked, and my attitude seems to have changed. Yeah. It was just I was limited in terms of what I thought were the great writers, and now that I've made a conscious effort to consider writers who are writing something different from what I have been taught is great literature, whether that be by society or whether that be through studying English literature, I feel I have a much richer reading experience as a result.
Predictions for the Man Booker?
Well, after a terrible run when I got it right once in 17 years. I've got it right for the last 3 years, but I've also felt there are reasons to go for the winner that I've picked. And I'm less certain this year, I really am. I'm going for A Little Life because I think it's brilliant, because I think she's achieved something technically with that book that very few other authors could possibly pull off without producing a book that, if they tried it, they would produce a book that was an unreadable mess. I think she's produced something quite brilliant. But I think Marlon James and Sanjeev Sahota are not out of it. The other three, I'd be very surprised if they won, although I'm very happy to see them on the shortlist. But yes, Hanya Yanagihara, I think.
I will be doing a predictions video and discussing the shortlist nearer the time. At the moment, I think maybe Marlon James, but there'll be a lot of sad people who love A Little Life a lot and who have been broken by it, and who maybe think that if she wins, it will somehow put them back together. Thanks very much for stopping by. That was Bookshop. Bye. Bye. Bye.